Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who enjoys a trek through the wilderness. It's Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Once in a while, I like to take a trek into darkness.
You do I would recommend bringing some of those fancy lights with you. The one, your little puck lights that you have in your office. Because it's a new frontier out there, Frank.
That's true. Yeah.
And you want to be able to make the voyage home safely.
True. Yeah. Especially after all those strange new worlds and that stuff. But
exactly. You could come into first contact with anything new for you. That would be.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
true, yeah.
Have you seen Khan recently? I haven't seen that guy in ages. Anyway, Frank, what do you think?
This is just beyond.
Dang it. That's good. I'm going to stop there. That's a good one. Frank, I would love to discover what you're drinking this evening.
Okay. Well, here's what I picked to drink today. I am drinking, I think this is new. If it's not, then it's new to me. But it's from Rising Tide. It is a new session IPA, the Maine Island Trail Ale. And it's a really very light for an IPA, thus session IPA. Right. Really nice and crisp and smooth, and feels like I might drink a lot of these this summer because it feels like a nice sort of
a summer IPA, a summer.
Yeah, it's
IPA.
it's very light, not in the way that I weirdly get in the mood for stouts in the summer, not like that, in the traditional actual summer beer.
It's hot and this heat is making me not hungry. I better have a stout. Frank, probably.
Yes. Yeah. Well, less and less so in my 30s. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's okay. Times they are changing.
They're catching up with me. Yeah. So that's what I'm having. It's a Rising Tide Maine Island Trail Ale Session IPA. But what about yourself? What are you sipping on?
Well, it's rather cold outside for a spring. I don't know about where you are, but all of a sudden it was like, spring, winter. Spring, and I got a slightly winter day.
Yeah.
And so I am drinking what I believe is the remnant of my Sam Adams Cold Snaps. Actually,
nice.
Thought it was seasonally or at least day appropriate because we are in fact having a last cold snap.
Yeah,
the warm weather.
Yeah,
really
it does.
Sets in.
Does seem to be. I hope it's the last one. Gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, I like this time of year because it's you can wear a sweatshirt or shorts. It doesn't matter. You'll be comfortable either way. And just wear them together.
Yeah. Don't be that person who goes out for a run shirtless in shorts in 40-degree weather. Who are you trying to impress? I
certainly would never do that. I don't go anywhere shirtless, really.
No, I try not to.
I mostly, for sun protection, because, my skin is so white that the sun will gleam off of it and blind everyone in my near vicinity.
I don't have that problem. I really do it more for eye protection. I'm protecting the eyes of those around me.
Well, Frank, something lead in transition with looking at things with eyes. You like Star Trek.
Yes, as you can tell by the Borg implant over my eye, Yes, I like Star Trek.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been on a big Star Trek kick lately. Between season 4 of Discovery and as we record this, season 2 of Picard is almost finished, but not quite. So I've been really enjoying Trek more than I have in years, honestly. And I understand you're starting to dabble a little bit in Trek as well.
Yes. Well, I think I've always dabbled. That's probably the best way to describe my relationship with Star Trek. I've never really submersed myself, and every time I try, I don't lose interest. I just like move on to other things. I'm not exactly sure what it is. And um as like today actually I am like re-submerging myself into Trek, and I have started watching Star Trek Discovery again because I watched part of the first season and I just couldn't get into it. It didn't feel like Star Trek to me. Star Trek is innately optimistic about the future, and I actually saw it was either a tweet or an article the other day about why Star Trek is hard to swallow now. I don't know if you saw this.
No,
but like why are people having a harder time accepting Star Trek than they used to? And because people generally don't see the world moving in that direction, where they don't see like everybody working together in harmony and optimism and all about discovery and new ways of thinking and acceptance and all these things that Star Trek are about, and people are like, that's not what will happen.
Yeah.
And I can get behind that to an extent, but like I like the optimistic things because I want to believe that's where the world will go. And if we think that it won't, then it won't. Like you have to believe that it will to make it happen that way. It's kind of like being a Superman fan. Like people say Superman's boring because he like trusts people and and stuff. I'm like, well, you yourself have to like I think be somebody who is also trustworthy or not trustworthy, but willing to trust others or believe in the best in people and things like that.
Yeah, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, right? Like, or like you can sort of manifest it by like, if we all acted that way, then the world would become that way, right?
Right.
But it's hard to be the one that starts it. And yeah, I think that's true with Star Trek too. There is this optimism that like humanity can do anything, and that humanity will do all these great things in the future, and that there's this, this utopian future if we want it. I like that aspect of Star Trek a lot. I always have. I've also always really liked the aspect, and I think you're right that Discovery doesn't really have that in the same way, right? It doesn't really have that same gleaming idealistic future.
Well, the first season didn't to me because I mean, like you've read through the first season, and it's the Klingon War. So like I get like war is bleak. Like I'm so I understand that there's not like, hey, everybody, life is great, but also we're at war. So
sure,
if that the first season of Discovery, from like about half the season that I saw, like it felt like a reaction to other things, like instead in the current pop culture, instead of being faithful to Star Trek and what makes Star Trek. And so I dropped out of Discovery season 1, but I decided my father-in-law actually is a huge Trek fan. Is it actually Trekker now? I want to say Trekkie, but is it like, are you supposed to say Trekker?
It is Trekker, not Trekkie. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, he's a Trekker. Like, he's got memorabilia, and the other day he was like, "Oh, you got to help me build that model of the Enterprise that I have." And so he's like, he's got his stuff, and so I'm like, and I finally got him to watch the new stuff, even though I'm not watching it myself, like because I'm like,
so he wasn't watching it either.
No, we didn't have Paramount Plus app or a way to get it, so we finally, like after a few years, like got the Apple TV, got the Paramount Plus, and so now he's like watching Picard, he's watching Discovery. And so when he's talking to me, he's like, Michael, like she whispers a lot, and and like it's like bothering him. But he's liking them, and
Nice.
which is big because as a he's an original series guy.
Yeah,
Like, that's his bread and butter, and so I'm like, all right, well, if you're enjoying them, maybe I should really go back and
Gotcha.
try again. Mostly because I also really want to watch Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
Like that looks so good.
It looks really
so
fun.
good. And it looks, and so that's like kind of what I've been waiting for. I'm like, well, I know the Enterprise crew is in second season of Discovery, so I might as well just kind of make my way into all of them.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. But I have found this first episode of Discovery in the second season more Star Trek in the 35-40 minutes that I've seen of it than the entirety of the first season of Discovery. Yeah.
This show gets more and more Star Trek as it goes along. I think season 4, and I won't spoil it in case you do decide to stick with it. I hope you do. Season 4 is the most Star Trek feeling, like, okay, now this feels like traditional Trek and in a good way. So it, like, if that is any indication, like it kind of just continues to sort of get closer and closer, and I think by season 4 it feels like a Trek show.
Well, that's good. I mean, because Brian
but with its own spin on it too.
Yeah, well, because Brian Fuller is still the showrunner, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He at least created it. I'm not sure if he's still a showrunner.
Okay. Well, I know he created it, but he's a huge Star Trek guy. I was listening to him on part of that. What made me also dive in, I was listening to him on the King Cast, which is the Fangoria Stephen King podcast, and he was talking about something else I can't remember, maybe Christine or something like that. And he was also talking about Star Trek and like where that love of Star Trek came from and what's he like. And I was like, oh man, like I want to know what happened in the, like, you clearly love Star Trek and maybe I don't want to say the right things about Star Trek, but what makes Star Trek Trek? And where did the first season Discovery go? And I was so anyway, I'm back into it, and I'm really enjoying this first episode. It just, there's a camaraderie, there's some good banter, there's the sense of discovery. It feels more like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek right now. Like it's got that kind of flair to it.
And it
which I love. I love that Star Trek, so I'm okay with that.
It was conceived to feel that way.
I see. Okay.
I think the original development of it sort of was inspired by a lot of, I mean, that's why Alex Kurtzman is a co-creator of the show, who he also he worked with Abrams on, I think
all three of them, I think.
Co-wrote him Abrams and Orsi co-wrote the original 2009.
Definitely 2009. I don't know about Darkness.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the other two.
And it was a different team, I think. No, I still think Alex Kurtzman still did something for the third one.
I think he was still a producer or something. But anyway, he so there was like a pedigree there, right, of keeping it in line with the it doesn't necessarily take place in the Kelvin universe, but it was supposed to be inspired by the aesthetics of it and the tone of it in a lot of ways.
It definitely does take place in the traditional universe, which I don't know has an official name, but I don't know what it is.
Whatever, yeah, but the mainline sort of timeline.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
yeah, for reasons. I mean, even just like, look, I mean, you just said, that the Enterprise crew is in this, so like just the fact that Pike is Anson Mount and not Bruce Greenwood means that it's not
that's very good. Yeah, universe. That's a very good point. I remember when they build Discovery, when Discovery was coming out, and it was it's the prequel to the original Trek series. Yeah.
It starts 10 years before the original series and all that.
Yeah. And so I just like, and they throw money at it. It looks so good.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's Discovery is really interesting. And like I said, in this latest season, it feels the most like Trek. I started and stopped a few times though. In season 2 and in season 3, I hit points where I was sort of like, got less interested. As the thing about Discovery that's different about, I think, pretty much every Star Trek show that came before it is that they do the big season arcs.
Yep.
And it's not. It's
Didn't Enterprise do big season arcs, or Deep Space Nine did big season arcs?
I haven't seen much of Deep Space Nine or Enterprise. So I'm less fluent in those.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Deep Space. It's Deep
Okay,
Space Nine.
I'll take your word for it. I'm totally. Yeah,
I know more about Trek history and fandom than I have actually watched the shows.
Well, this show gets very, very into those arcs, and it can sometimes be a little hard to follow, or like they sometimes feel a little drawn out, at least for me. But by the end of a season, it sort of all ties together. And certainly I felt season 4 was, I think, the strongest of the entire
I didn't
show.
even know they had a 4 that came out. I thought it was only 3 so far.
Just
wrapped.
wrapped.
It just wrapped.
Just wrapped like a month or two ago.
Are they doing a 5? Is it confirmed?
I believe it's 5th and final.
5th and final. Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Well, maybe I'll be able to catch up before it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There. I mean, 5 years of any show is, that's, good on you. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And they're clearly leaning into Trek as a Paramount Plus, draw.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's their biggest brand. Right?
It is.
So,
yeah, it's their biggest franchise. It's, and it must be working for them because they've got, they're doing the Disney Plus thing of like, just like there's always either a Star Wars or a Marvel show on at any given point. There seems to be pretty much always a Star Trek show on at any given point right now, where you got Picard, you got Discovery,
which is because I want to say when this comes out, I think there's a week before Strange New Worlds comes out.
Yep,
I think something along those lines. So, I guess they're. So what's the one that's coming out after Strange New Worlds? Oh, I guess there's Below Decks or
Lower Decks. Yeah. Which I haven't actually started that yet, but I hear such good things. And
I heard it's great. And I not that I'm afraid to watch it, but that I am not a big enough Trekker. Am I a big enough Trekker to get the jokes? I can watch Harley Quinn and get every single one of those jokes because DC is my
DC is
fandom.
Thing. Yeah.
So I get everything that they're throwing out, but will I get, or does it matter? I guess it has to be designed for more than just fans.
Yeah, I think I feel like the people who have enjoyed it and talked on the internet about how much they've enjoyed it are people who I tend to respect their opinion and agree with their opinions on share their opinions on media. So I feel like you and I would like it just based on that alone. And I think I don't know if there will be a point where there's not a Trek on, but if that happens, that might be the thing where I turn to and I'm like, all right, cool. Now there's a Trek shaped hole in my heart. Let me
let me fill it with this.
Let me fill it with yes,
show.
Exactly. So I've been looking forward to that. Picard is some of my favorite Trek that I've seen in a long time. I think Picard is really, really engaging and really keeps me interested. And that's where they do, like, that's sort of the Star Trek show for Star Trek fans, because, like, yes, it's obviously taking a beloved character and building, telling new stories around him. But they pull in all these subtle references to every Star Trek series. Some really subtle ones, real like Easter eggs, all the way up to like, familiar characters showing up. From Voyager and as well as Next Gen, and there have been hints of things from Deep Space Nine and even Enterprise. So they're doing some really interesting stuff there. They're about to have we're in season 2 right now. Their 3rd will be the final season, apparently. And a whole bunch of Next Gen people are coming back for season 3.
I saw that, which is very exciting. Picard, I got about halfway through the first season, and it was holding my attention more than Discovery. It definitely was like, it does feel like Star Trek. This is good. I like Jean-Luc Picard. He's my favorite captain. So I am, I'm on board for all of these things. I don't know really why I stopped though. Like but then like when I think about going back, I'm like, I should probably start from the beginning because I only remember like the briefest of bits, but
They
I
do a
was
pretty good job on that show though. Of like, if you watch the previously on Star Trek Picard thing at the beginning, you'll probably catch
remember
up
most
again.
of it.
Yeah,
Probably. I think you're right in that show is definitely more for fans because people would show up and be like, yes, you.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to know who you are.
Yeah,
I
there's a
can
lot
tell.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. There are things that go over my head, or at least I can tell I should know who this is, but I don't, or I can tell that this name they just said should be significant, but and yet it doesn't take away from my enjoyment. I've gotten actually really into, shout out to our friend Vactor, and his podcast TREKnological, where he and his friend Schaff talk about whatever Trek show is on currently. They go, it's a weekly recap show. I'll link them in the show notes. They do a great job. And then another friend of mine has another show called Strange New Takes, where he and a bunch of friends have a roundtable discussion each week about their hot takes on whatever Trek show aired that week. So I'll link to both of those. Those are great podcasts. And I enjoy listening to those because they have more of a wealth of knowledge than I do. And a lot of times listening to their analysis of the show enhances my own enjoyment of it when they'll explain that, like, yeah, this was a reference to this episode of the original series. And maybe it's something that I have seen, but I just didn't remember the reference. I didn't remember the character's name or whatever. But once they explain it, I'm like, oh, I have seen that one. Okay, Gary Seven, that's who that is. So that's sort of getting more into the internet culture around it enhances the enjoyment of it.
I think that it always enhances the enjoyment of anything. Yeah. Like sometimes a good after show.
Yeah, exactly.
Is a great way to keep me engaged. We say as people who did a Supergirl podcast.
That's right. Yeah.
For how long? I mean, but like you watch the episode and be like, yeah, that was good. And then you talk about it, be like, no, that was really good. Like, they did a really good job. Like, and so it does help to, book club it almost.
Totally. Yeah.
The water cooler talk, version of talking a show out, or anything out. I do have a question for you. When you are, like, let's say, faced with a free evening and you can only watch something Star Trek, like what version of Star Trek do you fall onto? And I'm going to split this in two ways. Like, I know you're going to fall to 2009 Star Trek most of the time. I know that
if we're talking about a movie, like I can only watch one movie, like, yeah, it's probably going to be that one or maybe Khan.
Yeah. Okay.
Home.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, that's my point. So, like, do you like, so if I'm like, okay, I got to watch a Star Trek movie, I'm either going to fall into, like 2009 Star Trek, Wrath of Khan, and then probably First Contact would probably be like, it would be like, if I had to choose, it would be one of those three. But if I had to watch the show, I'd probably turn on the original.
Same. It's going to be either original series or next gen.
Okay. Yeah. So that's because there's so much out there, right? Like you said, you haven't done Deep Space Nine or Enterprise.
Yeah, those more I've caught them. Like whatever I've happened to catch, when it's been on or whatever.
Well, I
haven't watched those as intentionally.
I guess why haven't you then? Like if there's like all these like things are open to you, you have a free night and you're like, I could start watching Deep Space Nine. It's Star Trek, but like you don't. You fall back to something else. Why is that?
Haven't thought of it, I guess. Like or haven't like, it seems like a lot to bite off. A whole new series.
Yep.
Haven't been in the right frame of mind or had the time to like, get into a whole series of, when you're when you have limited time to watch, say, TV on your own. Like my wife isn't going to be into Trek like to watch it with me, right? So it's going to be stuff that I'll watch when I have my some time on my own or whatever. And when I do have that, I'm probably going to watch the new episode of Picard or the new episode of Discovery or whatever, and I'm not going to sort of slow binge, another series. I've started a couple of times and just not had the wherewithal to continue. I don't know. I guess it's no different than any other, like, name another show that I want to watch but haven't like had the time or had the opportunity to really sink my teeth into it yet. It's no different.
No,
not lack of wanting to.
No, that makes sense, especially with new Star Trek content.
Yeah,
making its way known into the world. If I asked you this question 10 years ago, might be a different answer, because
sure,
it was only 10 years ago. Your option was Into Darkness, basically.
Yeah, right. That was the new piece of content. Yeah,
that was new, and that was it. There wasn't anything else.
Sure.
So it is a brave new world for
it is
for Trekkers, which is exciting.
Yeah. And the other aspect of Trek that I like, and that I don't know that any show is really doing this right now. I hope that Strange New Worlds is the sort of Twilight Zone aspect of the Roddenberry style of storytelling that was very much like a little morality play, or had a moral of the story told through the familiar characters, going to these new settings and meeting these new cultures. And he could get heavy-handed about it sometimes, City on the Edge of Forever or whatever, but but he was trying to say something, the way Rod Serling was. And the new Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, does that really great too. But Trek hasn't done that in a little bit now.
No,
and
the best Trek to do that was the Orville, because that's what
that's
Orville
right
was doing. Yeah.
And I wonder if Strange New Worlds will do that, or if it's going to be more of, because it does seem like their charter, let's say, is closer to the original series and the Next Generation, than we've seen in a while. Voyager did it too.
Even the show, it's Voyager. That was the one I was missing. I knew there was a Trek show that I could not think of the name of, but I know that Strange New Worlds is supposed to go back to the episodic format.
Yeah. And I'm excited for that, because as much as I've enjoyed these shows that do the full season arc and tell a well fleshed out story and have the room to breathe, I'm interested to see them return to this formula that we know can work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see them sort of go back to the Roddenberry style, and I hope that part of that episodic structure is that sort of like what I'm calling the Twilight Zone style of storytelling, where there is a moral of the story that's told through, every culture, every planet, every world is an allegory for some aspect of humanity. And I don't know. I like that. I like that as an aspect of Trek.
Me too. Trek is more philosophical than it's almost more traditionally science fiction that way. Like, science fiction a lot of times has become action adventure, but a lot of science fiction is not really action or horror. It's more asking important philosophical questions.
Yeah.
And look at Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. One of your first, if not the first, science fiction piece, and it's not interested in the action of the story. A lot of it takes place off page, but it's really interested in the morality of the issues presented by the characters, and that is what I enjoy about science fiction. And that's really what separates science fiction from fantasy. I think a lot of times, fantasy can do that, but good real science fiction is asking questions and doesn't necessarily provide answers. Like you said, Roddenberry is quite interested in providing an answer for you a lot of the time. But there should be some debate. And the characters on the ship represent different aspects of humanity, and when they go to a planet, you're able to lens different ways of viewing things. So different issues. So that's what I like about it. I think that's why I always turn back to the original series too, because that's what it was doing in a way that the other ones kind of evolved with pop culture. But I mean, Next Gen did it too. I shouldn't say that it was just
Sure,
the original series, but when I think of Next Generation, I mostly think of the movies. I don't think of the show because that was my first exposure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And those movies are just fantastic. I mean, I just rewatched First Contact a few days ago for the first time in years, and oh man, does that movie hold up? And it's so freaking good. I was rewatching it to brush up on some of the stuff that's happening in Picard season 2.
I see.
And just so fantastic. What a tight movie.
What's the movie where Data and Picard are singing HMS Pinafore?
Oh,
is that Generations
or Generations? Nemesis? Might be Generations.
I know it's not Nemesis. I know it, but I don't know if it's Generations or Insurrection. Pretty sure it's Generations, but I'm not positive about that. But anyway,
if you want to use your one lookup while I tell people where they can find us on the internet,
I will do that.
To know the answer to that.
I will do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh man, love the Trek. Thank you for listening. If you love the Trek too, we'd love to hear from you. At beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. Our website is beerwithgeeks.com. You can also tweet at us at beerwithgeeks and follow us there for to learn when new episodes go up. You can find us in any podcast app, whatever app you're listening in right now, assuming you're listening in an app. If you would please do us the favor of subscribing or following. That would help us a lot, as well as leaving a rating or review, particularly on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That helps us a whole lot. And if you want to tell a friend about the show, that's awesome. That helps us a lot. Another way to help us is to support us at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. That helps support this show and all the other shows in our network, the Thought Bubble Audio Podcast Network. A buck a month is all it takes to help us keep making these shows. So check us out there or at thoughtbubbleaudio.com to learn about all the other great shows that are here on the network.
Nicely said, Frank. I can safely say that it is Star Trek Insurrection that they sing A British Tar from the HMS Pinafore. So
Insurrection
is the one with F. Murray Abraham with a stretchy
F.
face.
Murray Abraham. Okay. Yeah. The Romulus and Remus and
yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay,
that's
cool.
the one. Yeah. That's what I think of when I think I know maybe those movies are not always indicative of Next Generation, but they're a little more action oriented,
They are.
But that just happens to have been my exposure. But anyway, that's neither here nor there now because you already told people where to find us. So it was lovely to speak to you, Frank, as always. And so until next time, cheers.
Cheers. Live long and prosper.